all the while, I just kind of missed getting to make the music that I loved and having the creative freedom to actually write what I wanted to write, say what I want to say, and get that message out. Hey, this is Moxy Anne with MXI, and I am so thrilled to be on air with Ruben J this week. This is the Ruben J Show.
Welcome to the Ruben J Show. It's Ruben J here in the studio. Another great Monday for you all here, and I'm excited for this week's episode. But before I jump in to how great this week's episode is, and how great of a time we're going to have, and the wonders that is my guest this week, I wanted to take two quick seconds to say Alter Bridge's new record, Pawns and Kings, is out now. So head over and download that and listen to that. But also, just as importantly as Alter Bridge's Pawns and Kings record, I wanted just to say thank you to those of you who have tuned into this podcast. Last week's episode with Miles Kennedy has become the biggest downloaded episode of this podcast, and I'm excited about it. And I think that it's set this podcast up for a great trajectory. And to do a little bit more housekeeping items, I got some great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, and continuously. And I'm booking more and more and more and more and more. And I think it's going to be a nice run through Thanksgiving, where I think the week after, the week before, or maybe both weeks, the week of Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving, I might take a little hiatus, a little break, couple week break. To recharge. So with that being said, I just can't thank you enough. So let's get this one going too. If you are here from the Miles Kennedy interview from last week, continue to share this episode. If you are new to the Ruben J Show, make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and anywhere else that you actually get your podcasts from, because I am on all the major ones, but I may not be on your favorite one. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you would like to get a podcast version of it, but it's not on your favorite podcatcher, shoot me an email. My email is rubenontheradio@gmail.com, and I would be more than happy to arrange setting that up for you. And with that, let's go ahead and jump in to this week's episode. All right, so I got a great guest this week, and we have a lot of history. And I think that if you are somebody who likes to have conversations or like to listen to people have conversations, this week's episode I think is gonna scratch an itch for you. It's my friend Moxy Anne of MXI. She is back with two new projects. She's managing two simultaneous projects, and in this episode, she makes a very big announcement that I think you are going to want to be a part of. So check it out. Keep it locked. And again, head over to multimediamouth.com/Amazon and start your Amazon shopping. It helps the show out. And of course, dollarinthejar.com, where you can get ad-free versions of these interviews. So dollarinthejar.com, multimediamouth.com/Amazon. Sign up, help the show out. Let's go. So the longer we sit here and just do nothing, the less anxiety we both will have.
You're so right.
So we should just sit here for like 40 minutes and just like awkwardly stare and see how long people will listen to this for.
I think that's the perfect concept for an audio podcast.
You know, I have great ideas every now and then.
Sometimes, but only sometimes.
And with that, I think we should just jump into this.
Okay, we can do that if that's what you want. You're the boss.
Oh, now you admit that I'm the boss. You spent 2.5 years doing a podcast where you refused. You know what?
I knew that would trigger him.
Welcome to You're My Best Friend, a podcast about life, tacos, and other things.
Oh, we're forgetting friendship? Okay. That's cool. That's fine.
We forgot friendship a long time ago, Moxy Anne.
Oh.
All right, let's go ahead and welcome to the Ruben J Show. You're guest number dose.
Wow, really?
Of this particular brand of this podcast. So, I think that the very first thing that we should do is definitely address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And this is not an episode of You're My Best Friend, a podcast about life, friendship, and tacos. Although there are still hundreds of you downloading that podcast
Literally.
a year after it went off the air. What's wrong with you people?
Get over it. It's over, guys. Come on.
Stop trying to make fetch a thing. It was a thing for a year and a half and it never took off. 2.5 years, however long it was. How long was that podcast?
Close to 3 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, Moxy, why did you decide to end You're My Best Friend?
I did not decide. I would like to plead the fifth and take 5. I'm sticking with that.
Okay, but the truth is that podcast ever coming back?
How did I know you were going to hit me with this on air?
I have to listen. It's not for me. It's not for me. It's for the people.
Oh, it's for the listeners. It's for the people.
It's for the people.
Of
course, the people are leaving.
You know, the people are rioting in the streets. I don't know.
Somewhere for sure. I know that.
Oh, who's to say? I'm really not the hands of fate. I am not the deciding factor. I am just one man.
You're a man?
Universe. Surprise.
All right. Now that we got that out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh, my plan is working perfectly here. Moxy Anne is my guest. She is the lead singer of a band that's not really a band, I guess.
Yeah.
You got music projects coming out left and right. I don't know what else we're going to talk about over the next 30 minutes, but
who knows?
Yeah, let's talk about this new project you got going on, MXI. It's a derivative of an old project under a new form. Tell me a little bit about why you decided to bring MXI back and what the future holds briefly. Don't give me the whole next nine years of your life, but what does the future hold for the newly rechristened MXI?
Man, I wish I could give you the next 9 years of my life. That would make it a lot easier.
Everyone involved, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So MXI, like you mentioned, it is the reincarnation of a little band that was called Moxy and the Influence back in the day. Moxy and the Influence, we performed and were in existence from about 2013 to about 2016, 2017, if you count the last couple shows that I did myself. And then we were on hiatus, as we called it, for a couple years while I finished college, got my life together, figured out what I wanted to do with my life, and now it's back, and it's called MXI, which is honestly what everyone was calling it when we were performing. Like, nobody called it Moxy and the Influence, everybody called it MXI. We just hadn't rebranded because all the music was under a different name. But I decided to bring it back because for a long time I've been honestly just writing music without a strategy to release it, without an idea of what I was going to do with it. I had just started writing music with some friends, actually, Jeremy Valentine and Brandon Wolf of the band New Year's Day. Now they're actually on tour right now with the New Year's Day. And yeah, they are. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. This is news to me. When did this happen?
A couple months ago, I think, maybe a month or 2. Yeah, I think they're in Phoenix right now.
Wow, good for them. Anyway, back to your story.
Thank you. Yeah, so I had written songs with them for a couple years after graduating college, and even before then I was, working on stuff with them, but I didn't have like a release strategy. I didn't have a goal that I wanted to accomplish or anything like that. And then as time went on, when MXI initially broke up, there were a ton of people who were like, "Hey, when's the band getting back together? Are you going to do anything again? Like, what's your next project?" And I didn't have a next project. I tried out a couple different bands, and they were great people. I made great connections, did some cool music and good things, but nothing ever really took off. And all the while, I just kind of missed getting to make the music that I loved and having the creative freedom to actually write what I wanted to write, say what I want to say, and get that message out into the world of what I actually wanted, what I want to say and how I feel and all of that. And I missed that. And so MXI was really bringing it back, was really just kind of born of that. Like, I have music that I'm writing and I have nowhere else to put it. So I'm just going to, put it here.
That's I think you and I over the years, we were once friends.
No
Some
more.
some would say best friends, whatever that means.
You
And
wouldn't.
well, I mean, it's long. There's a long history of my reasons why, but I've been able to kind of watch this process, as an insider, and then for a little bit as an outsider, and then as an insider again. And I think that you're at your best when you're able to just do your own. Like I've seen you in collaborative environments, and I've seen you work on your own, and like obviously there's pros and cons to both a solo project and an actual band project. But I think just as an outsider looking in and the music, journey that you've been on, is that you really do work the best when it's you and your vision and what Moxy Anne wants to do, as opposed to what 90 other people who might be involved might want. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what your writing process has been over this last couple of years, with your latest release being Dark Side? And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But can you tell me a little bit about your release your writing strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So my writing strategy
English, please.
help. It looks a little different now, and honestly, COVID really, it hit me hard. Not with medical issues or anything like that, but I feel like there were two groups of people with COVID. There was the group that decided to, use all their free time and accomplish things and take up hobbies and get stuff done that they've always wanted to do. And then there was another totally separate group of people who literally just sat on the couch and they were like, I just don't want to live anymore, and I'm just going to sit here and disassociate for 2 years. And I was in that group. I did very little during COVID because it honestly was a much needed break for me from a music career that had started when I was 15 and had not stopped since then, going all the way through 4 years of college. So in a way it was good, in a way it was bad. But that being said, I had a couple songs in the can before before we hit COVID. I had about 3 songs done. And then I took a long break in there. And then as we started to come out of COVID, I started to think like there are avenues that I can pursue here. There are things that I want to do, things that I want to say. And honestly, more than anything, just being with my husband, getting, I got married in the last year and a half. And he has been the biggest supporter of my music and the biggest, my biggest fan throughout this whole thing. And he's the one who, when I'm getting stagnated, when I'm not writing, and when I'm, procrastinating on getting a song done, he's the one who's like, hey, what's the progress on that song? Like, I want to hear it. Like, and he genuinely wants to hear it. So he kind of pushes me to do that. And I started to, picking up writing again with Jeremy over the last 6 months, and we've gotten 2 more songs done. Usually the way it works is because Jeremy is just constantly writing. He writes for some pretty big name bands. But he's just literally like,
You can't just
I mean,
you can't just say that and not name drop. Like, you got to tell me who he writes for.
well, I mean, New Year's Day is like a huge one, but they work with some pretty major bands. They have a whole mixing and mastering studio now. It's like a one-stop shop for bands who want to work with a production team. So he's always writing tracks, and usually if he has one that he thinks will sound good, he'll send it to me before he tries to shop it to somebody else. And if I like it, then I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. And then writing process from there basically just looks like trying to figure out what I want to say, and, just shedding it over and over until I have exactly the words that I want to say. This EP has been a difference in creative process for me. It's been a challenge and a struggle, and I'm thankful because I'm growing in the process, definitely.
Yeah, and so let's also talk about the fact that yeah, you have this what I believe you called a collaborative
Yeah.
um, with musicians, and the structure of this project is going to be a lot different than what most people consider a band, because most people consider a band singer, guitar player, bass player, drummer, set
Yeah.
in stone. Every now and then you'll have a roster change, but with MXI there is no real set band. The only thing that's consistent with MXI is the M. The XI is going to be, well, I guess the X too, because there's an M and an X in Moxy.
It doesn't really mean anything anymore. It's
I
just
know
kind of
that.
letters. The other
Oh,
thing that 2022 has taught me is you can literally name yourself anything. Even you could use numbers. It doesn't have to make sense. I was really limited in the past because we wanted to go by MXI, and it was like MXI doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have a meaning besides Moxie and the Influence. And then we hit 2022, and there are all kinds of weird ass names out there for bands and artists, and like you can be an artist and have a band name, and you can be a band and have an artist name. None of it makes any sense, and it's kind of freeing in a way.
well, so here's the weird thing: is I'm just a podcast host and I have a band name.
Yeah,
I don't know
I know.
what is going on in this world that I can have a band name.
What's your
Uh,
band name?
I can't say it out loud just in case someone actually has, and they might sue me over it.
That's fair.
Um, so
Understandable.
so why did you decide to go with a collective model as opposed to trying to find actual bandmates to work with on more of a full-time basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is truly speaking, this is kind of a hard one for me to talk about because there's a lot of emotional pain just from the past years of Moxie and the Influence and MXI and working with bandmates and such. But I mean, being as blunt and honest as I can be, there's too much drama. Um, I worked in girl bands with teenage girls for probably over 7 years. And it was really, really difficult. And I mean, I love the girls who I got to work with. I worked in so many different bands. I worked in like all girl cover bands, all girl bands, everything like that. I love working with women. It's one of my most favorite things to do. And I truly do believe that like female musicians are some of the most talented out there because not only do they have to learn their craft, they have to learn how to do it well because everybody's judging them.
Yeah.
But I personally, it was hard for me to think about picking up MXI again because of all the drama and all the difficulty and everything that happens when you put four teenage girls in a band and ask them all to agree on everything. And I've kind of learned in the past that, and as I've grown, I've kind of learned that being in a band is conflict. Like that does create drama, that does create difficulty. And so my goal with starting this again was to be as easy, simple, and drama free as possible. My uncle has a band, and this is kind of his band model as well. Basically, like he's in charge, he's the boss, just like you would have at a normal company. And, he's in charge of writing the music, in charge of production, and in charge of shows and everything like that. And then he just hires people.
Mm.
And for me, that was a hard thing to wrap my mind around because especially growing up, I was placed into my first all-girl band at 14. And when they put you in an all-girl band at 14, it was engineered to be the next Runaways. um I was actually like put into a band by a couple of teachers who I was studying with, and Gina Shock of the Go-Go's. She was the drummer of the Go-Go's. They were kind of heading up a project to create the next Runaways. And when you get placed into a band at 14 with other teenage girls, especially when you're coming out of a homeschool environment like I was, where you don't have a lot of friends, you kind of look at that and you're like, oh, these are going to be my best friends. I'm going to grow up with these girls. I'm going to learn to bond with them. And in 20, 30, 40 years, we're going to be just like Motley Crue or Aerosmith or Heart, where it's the same lineup and it never changed. And we're just best friends taking on the world. And that doesn't happen.
Well, it's funny because I think it doesn't matter if you're a girl band, a boy band, a band of misfits or whatever.
Yeah.
I think people forget that lineup changes kind of happen regularly.
They do.
There was a drummer before Ringo and the Beatles. Blink 182, which apparently is making a comeback. They've had like what, three different singers in the last couple of decades, or at least
Yeah.
one other singer.
Yeah.
I can think of, Bon Jovi has had at least a dozen different guitar players by his side. I think the only band that I can think of off the top of my head that hasn't had like a major lineup change is maybe U2.
Yeah.
Like,
Even yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but I'm not a musician, musical historian. We can have Brad come on the show and talk about that at some point. But I think Guns N' Roses for a while wasn't even Guns N' Roses. It was just Axl Rose with a bunch of
Yeah,
Walmart
pretty much.
knockoffs.
Well, and for me, it was kind of like, how do I avoid drama, make cool stuff that I love, like music and music videos, and eventually, hopefully, playing shows, get to work with as many badass women as I can, and be in charge of the whole thing and get to use my authentic voice instead of having somebody else in charge of the creative process. Because a lot of the stuff that MXI wrote in the past, it was all four of us. And I love that. I genuinely do wish that I could find four girls who I align with, like emotionally, spiritually, creatively. I wish that I could find that. But it's hard. And not, on top of that, you have to find somebody who you align with who also has the amount of time, who's also in the same position in life, who has the financial situation where they can do that. It's pretty much impossible right now, especially living in a place like Southern California, where the drummer who I worked with for Dark Side, Alexa, she's freaking fantastic. But that girl works her tail off and she does not have any free time. And so I wanted to be able to work with as many people as I could and collaborate on things like music videos, photo shoots, other projects, and also respect their time and give them like expectations up front, let them know exactly what they're going to be needed for, pay them for their time, respect their boundaries, everything like that. I wanted to be able to do all of that and at the same time use my authentic voice and not have, my guitarist looking over my shoulder saying like, "Oh, we shouldn't say that," or the drummer trying to add in their own thing or something that doesn't match up with the song entirely. Like I just wanted to make good music, and the reality is I have a music degree. I know that this is how 90% of pretty much all the popular music in the world gets written right now. It's not this is not a land of four-piece bands taking on the world anymore. That's just not what it is, unfortunately. Much as I wish it were, it's not. And so I'm trying to like just and the other element for me, I know I'm rambling. I'm sorry. You can cut me off if you need to.
That's
Um,
awesome. This is what I love. Hey, just a complete side note is I love when guests just keep talking because I don't have to think of another question. So keep talking.
I understand. I felt the same way when we were in a podcast together.
Listen, I just had Miles Kennedy on the podcast, and the only gripe that I have with that is that his answers were so short that I had to constantly be thinking of another question. So please, this is a nice change of pace.
Well, the other element of this for me was oh my gosh, I had it and I lost it.
Well, this
It's
is what
gone.
happens. Wow.
Yeah, there was another element of this for me. Oh my gosh. What the heck was it? I don't
I'm
know.
just
It'll
I'm
come
just
back.
gonna keep the camera where it's at for now for anybody watching this until you can think of the next element.
Yeah. I don't know. The other part of this, I literally just had
Oh
it.
my gosh, that's
What the
hilarious.
heck? That's
We're
so
you're, we're
unprofessional.
gonna be like 10 minutes down the line, and you're be like, "Oh, I know what it was." Did it have to do with your schedule?
Possibly. Yeah,
Okay,
probably that. I think the other part of it may have been I don't know if this is what it is. Oh, I remember what it was. Okay.
okay, hold on.
So
Let me reset this. Okay, go.
the other element of this for me was literally just making this as stress-free as possible because I don't know if you've ever tried to have you ever tried to release music all by yourself?
Um, no, but I did basically run a podcast for about a year and a half, where I tried releasing it all on my
Okay,
own.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Close enough, right?
You're not talking about the Best Friend show, are you? Okay, cool. Um, well, I'm someone who I've never been formally diagnosed with anxiety or any mental disorders, mostly because I have kind of a secret fear that if I'm diagnosed with something, I'll use it as an excuse. But what I do know, and I know that I have to see a psych, but basically, um, what that looks like for me is I get intensely easily overwhelmed at times. And I think part of that is also just that I say yes to too many things, and I have too much on my plate just regularly. I mean, you know this. Um,
Yeah.
but I get super easily overwhelmed really fast. And when you try to release music on your own, there are about 20 different elements that you're supposed to be thinking of at all times. So, like, not only am I writing the music, I'm also in charge of the recording process on my own and sending it back and forth to the producer and making sure that it's good to go. And then I need to make the cover art myself, which I did for Dark Side and I, did for the logo. I headed up making the logo and the cover art myself and submitting that to the distribution platform and in charge of, securing good interviews with people like Ruben J. And, Ruben was very Ruben was really helpful actually setting a couple of interviews up for me because I just did not have the mental wherewithal to set that up for myself. And there's the distribution side, there's the advertising side, there's the social media side, which is huge, and thank God I'm also a social media manager because otherwise I would not be able to handle it all by myself. But like, back in the day, the label would have 6, 7, 8 different people just in charge of different things for your music releases. And today, as an independent artist under my own record label, technically, there's a million different things that I'm in charge of: making the website, inventorying merch, making sure that the giveaways get distributed, writing thank you notes, and setting up a link tree and figuring out how to use, a whole bunch of different things and making release videos. Like, I made a whole video to announce that MXI was coming back. That took me like 5 hours. And so one of the getting back to my original point, one of the major components of this for me as well, making the decision to come back as MXI, was making sure that it was going to be stress free. And when I would start to get overwhelmed by the amount of things stacking up in my head and the amount of things trying to do, I just kept hearing oddly a line from Frozen, which is from a, it it's from Frozen 2, but it's from a song called Do the Next Right Thing. And I just kind of kept hearing in my head, like, you have so much on your plate, but just do the next right thing. And for me right now, that doesn't look like playing shows. And I know that's made a lot of people sad, especially when I initially announced that MXI was coming back. And it makes me sad too, because honestly, like, playing shows is my first love. That's what I love to do. That's why I perform in cover bands. But I can't think about marketing, advertising, distribution, writing, all of the things, and promoting shows and rehearsals and getting musicians and payment and all of that, pre-sales. I mean, the live music market in Southern California is a nightmare right now, and especially with COVID restrictions. So
Yeah.
for me, it looks basically right now, MXI is literally a passion project in the truest sense of the word. I'm just writing music that I like and releasing it however the hell I want. And no one's paying me to do it, so no one cares, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget about, especially independent artists, is that there isn't a machine behind a lot of these artists. And yeah, if you're, a Nickelback, or I don't know why I chose Nickelback of all bands, but if you're a Dua Lipa, or
Avril
Justin.
Lavigne, yeah,
Yeah, never. Yeah, and you have, well, ironically, she was married to the lead singer of Nickelback, so that's
that's what made
interesting.
me think of Avril Lavigne.
um, there's always a machine behind those artists, but
Yeah.
today you see a lot of these people on TikTok, and people assume that there's a team behind them because they're getting the videos viral and they're doing all this stuff. And the reality of
Yeah.
it, a lot of times there isn't. Sometimes it's just the singer and maybe a friend helping them out in the background. and I think that that's the ugly truth behind the music business is that it's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
the unfortunate part about it is, as musicians, as entertainers, as podcasters, as people who put out content, you can't complain about it. You can't, vent about it to anybody who's not in the business or understands the business, because you just come off as ungrateful and like, oh, you got to make music for a living. Why are you complaining? Well, they don't understand that music video costs you $1,000, and the mixing of the record could cost you $1,000 or two, yeah, or whatever,
Yeah.
like, and that's if you just do it. Like, yeah, you can do it mediocrely and find someone to do it for, $100, but then
Well,
why?
yeah, but I want to, you want to make a product that you're actually proud of.
Exactly.
I'm not in this to do a crappy job and, oh, check out my
Well,
music. Here's something I have to promote. Oh, shut up.
I was gonna say,
My gosh. No, but like I'm not in this to spend like if I'm going to spend $500 on a music video and have it be horrible and I don't want to show anyone, or I could spend $2,000 on a music video and be able to show it to everyone and have something that I've created that I'm proud of. I think too often we're thinking about the finances and we're not thinking about what we're actually passionate about and whether this is actually something that we're going to be proud of in the long run. And for me, I mean, Sydney, my guitarist, from Moxy and the Influence in the past, that was her philosophy when she was releasing her EP. It was honestly just like, oh, I'm not trying to make it big. I just want to release music and be able to say that I did it and make something that I'm proud of.
well, I think Dave Ramsey might disagree with the whole to spend money, but whatever. No one ever accused us of being fiscally responsible.
Oh yeah, we were not fiscally or physically responsible.
Well, I'm not physically responsible, but I heard
Same.
you have a gym membership now, so I think that you steal your husband. It's okay.
I have a treadmill in my kitchen. It's fine.
That's the most Los Angeles thing I've ever heard. I have a treadmill in my kitchen. It's more than a bedroom in your bathroom.
I mean, I have that too. They're connected.
You have a bathroom in your bedroom. There's a difference.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that's so LA and New York to have all that stuff. Like anywhere in between, I don't think they understand that reference. So let's briefly talk about the other aspect of this, which is you're also going to be releasing music under the Moxy Anne banner.
Yeah.
And you released an amazing cover of Hysteria by Def Leppard, and a well-edited music video. Like that music video that you put together for Hysteria was just fantastic. I mean, it looked like you spent like $1 million on the editing of that video alone. Tell me kind of more about why do you have the dueling brands, and what's the difference that people can expect between MXI and Moxy Anne? And again, that music video you did was just fantastic.
Thank you. Do you want the number of the guy who did that music video for me?
I actually, I think I have that guy's number, so I think we're good.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, let him know that he owes me tacos, okay?
I heard that you guys had a falling out about a year ago, and that's
so he owes me tacos for life. That's what that.
I don't know if that's how that works. I think his lawyer would disagree. Anyway, back on track.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm glad I talked so long because it gave you time to think of that amazing question.
Hey, listen, I have notes of what I wanted to talk about. Just don't ask to see them.
I'm scared. So it's kind of the same philosophy of just releasing what I want to release. If you go to Moxy Anne, my profile on Spotify for my solo stuff, I've released 3 songs so far. I released one song called The Egg that was written to raise awareness and benefit the protesters during the Hong Kong protests back in 2019. That was definitely like out of left field for me in terms of composition. It's a very beautiful piano ballad written by a friend of mine who has chosen to remain anonymous because he does a lot of business with China. The second release I have on there is a cover of a Moxy and the Influence song called Bella's Song that was recorded live during my senior recital in 2019. And I released that about 2 years ago, I think.
Did
And
you ever,
then
complete side note, did you ever release the music, like the performance video of that?
I did. I did. It's on YouTube. Yeah.
Whoever
And
edited that one
then
did a great job too, just FYI.
such a great job. And then the third single I have on there is the one that you just mentioned, my cover of Hysteria that I wrote for my wedding with Brad. And we used that as our first dance. The philosophy behind using two different names is honestly just that the music sounds vastly different. For MXI, you can expect like cutting edge rock, bordering on the edge of metal, and a lot of tech elements, a lot of synth, a lot of strings, a lot of screaming and heavy and loud, and all the things that you would expect from somebody who idolized Amy Lee as a child.
Mm.
And with my Moxy Anne profile, I've kind of designated that for a long time. I felt really split and I was really scared. And I didn't release this stuff that I'm writing for MXI now under my own name because I was like, it sounds really different. It sounds almost like it's two different people. Um, and then it was kind of freeing once I was like, well, I already own the name MXI. Like I already have all the trademarking stuff. I could just do that. And then release whatever else I have that I want to release on Moxy Anne and just have both of them going. Again, the goal isn't to go viral. It's not to be super famous or take over the world and be the next Olivia Rodrigo. It's honestly just I have music that I've written and created and I really like it and I want to share it with people.
Why would you want to be the next Olivia Rodrigo?
Mainly because she's really skinny and beautiful, but other reasons too.
Yikes. Maybe the only thing I think of is like the money. Because I've seen and heard her perform live and she's not that impressive.
I had a lot to get over, and she's also super young. How
I
isn't
think
she in
she's
her teens?
19, yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot to overcome with that as well. The other element that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when you start doing music as a young teenage girl, um, everybody basically pressures you and scares you into believing that if you hit your 20s and you haven't made it yet, then you're obsolete. I had people on my management team saying that Hayley Williams made it at 17 or whatever age she made it at. And if I can't make it by then I am going to end up just basically becoming sluttier and sluttier because that's what happens to girls who don't make it when they're teenagers and young and innocent. They just end up taking more clothes off.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you meant that you'd have to do stuff just to get music produced. I'm like, that just doesn't seem like sound advice at all.
No,
But
basically what was told to me is you have to make it when you're underage because they can't sexualize you as much then. And then the older you get, the more clothing you end up taking off.
tell it to Ariana Grande.
That's different. That's a different story.
Yeah, but I mean, I disagree with the premise of that
I
wholeheartedly.
did too, but I mean that was kind of what I grew up believing, and
Yeah.
especially like, I mean, Moxy and the Influence. I think I was 19 when we played our last show, and for me, hitting 20 was a rough year. And especially, climbing, just going 21. 21, I was like, okay, this is fine. I could still do music. 22, I was like, okay, this is fine. Taylor Swift, 22, this is fine. And then 23, and now I'm 25. And I had a huge mental hurdle to overcome just in feeling like I am now in my mid 20s. I'm soon going to be in my late 20s, and I haven't done anything worthwhile with my life and no one's going to listen to me because I'm not a prodigy anymore. And I'm kind of carrying that weight as well, which also adds to the feeling of being overwhelmed because if I don't do this fast enough, then I'm going to be obsolete. It's a mess.
Yeah, what's funny is not to make this about myself, but I've been in my late 20s for a while now. And I'm
Like
about to
12
exit
years.
20. Yeah. For 12 years. How old do you think I am? And but I'm about to exit my 20s, and the advice that I've been getting from people in my life now that I'm, close to hitting 30 is now you start realizing, oh, if I don't like the goalpost keeps moving essentially. And if you don't
Yeah.
hit whatever goals other people have for you in your life, then the closer you get to the next milestone age, you
Miles
know,
Kennedy.
that's what I was thinking. I was like Miles Kennedy age, but uh, like the next milestone, you feel more and more like a failure. But the reality of it is that there are people in this world who don't make it until they're later in life, that they don't find their voice until it's whatever that perfect song just happens to fall into their laps, or the perfect words, or the algorithm happens to just pick you up at the right time. Like it's such an interesting time these days, because you can have a really crappy song that just happens to hit the algorithm the right way, and
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're viral, and not in the bad way, like in a good way. And you all of a sudden have millions of people who follow you, and that's how you ultimately release these projects that you have that make a difference. So I just friend to friend, well, friend to friend. One of us is friend, the other one's friend. I'll let you decide that one, in your own
What
homes.
do either of those mean?
That's for you to find out and for me to know. But like, as long as you're doing what makes you happy, and you're able to pay your bills, whether that the bills are being paid because you're a social media manager on the side, or because you happen to have 20 million downloads on your latest song, whatever it is that's paying your bills, as long as your bills are paid and you're doing whatever makes you happy, stop
Yeah.
worrying.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that COVID taught me was that I didn't have to hustle every second of every day for meaningless crap. And I've gotten to the point where I turn down gigs because I would rather stay at home with my husband. It's like, do I want to go sing at a bar for 2 or 3 hours and make $150, or do I want to spend the night watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine and cooking a really great dinner and drinking wine and laughing? Like, which one is more valuable to me? And which one is going to leave me more emotionally fulfilled? And I'm kind of trying to take that look at everything in my life and basically just, not to use a buzzword, but living more mindfully. And
Yeah.
and looking at things that matter and things that don't. And I think, before I got married, my priority really was making it big, getting to live the crazy musician life, going back out on tour. I mean, I've been on tour half a dozen times already, but like living the touring life. And I have so many friends that are doing that and making all of my money through music. And I'm learning that I have supplemental income and I'm good with that. I'm happy where I am. I'm happy with the amount of music that I'm doing. I'm excited that I'm using my degree at all. I know a lot of people who aren't. And bottom line is, I'm proud of what I do. I'm passionate about the music that I'm releasing, and I'm excited to keep doing it. And for me, I have a happy home, a happy life, a wonderful husband, and that's more than enough for me.
Well, I have to break some news to you,
Yeah.
Moxy.
Crap.
You already made it, Biggs. For anybody wondering, she married a guy whose last name is Biggs.
How did I not
And
see that
so
one coming?
I'm surprised you didn't make the joke yourself.
I
Wasn't that,
I am too.
wasn't that the hashtag to your wedding?
Becoming bigs. Although although really it should have been we made it bigs.
You never listened to me.
Yeah, for good
That's
reason.
Yeah. Well, uh, let's briefly here, because we're running out of time.
I
But
know, I'm sorry.
it's both of us. We are we got things to do. Uh, I'm curious if you're willing to talk about the EP, because I have some inside information that I don't think has been public yet. And if we can break it on the show, obviously I'd like to break it. But if you do not want to break it on the show, we don't have to. But are you open to discussing the concept of this EP
Oh,
that
heck yeah.
you're planning on putting out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly, I was hoping we would talk about that because I figured you'd want to break it on the show, and I
Of
am
course.
so down for that.
Yeah, the last thing I broke on the show was my shoulder. So about 2 seconds ago, and it hurts. It
Are
hurt.
you?
Yeah,
Was
like,
it when you did? Haha.
actually, yes, it was. How'd you know? So I want to give you the opportunity to announce the name of the EP, because I don't want to take that thunder away from you, and then we'll break down the concept. So let me put the camera back on you here for anybody watching the show. Tell everybody why you're calling the EP Breakdown and Boogie.
That is not what I'm calling it. Wow, I was not expecting that. Wow.
Now,
Wow. Okay.
it's been a while since I made you laugh that hard.
You know, that kind of combines like the bands that I work in anyway, because I have a band called Boogie Agenda. So,
Oh
whew,
man, Breakdown
wow.
and Boogie out spring 2023.
Wow. Should I actually announce the real name?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the name of MXI's upcoming EP coming out in 2023 will be The Five Stages. And for those of you who are not familiar with the common term known as the five stages of grief, that is the theme of this EP. And I'm very excited. It's going to be an extended EP with 5 songs focusing on the 5 stages of grief. And an additional spoken word track that I'm working on right now that's way out of my comfort zone for me. Yeah.
Hold on. This is news to me.
I know.
Hold on to what you got. It doesn't make a difference if you make it or not.
So obviously, as you know, you're probably aware, the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. For me, there was
Hold on. I am well aware of the 5 stages of grief. Okay.
For me, there was kind of a 6th stage of grief, and it's one that I have taken a long time to get to, and honestly, I started writing the spoken word track for this back in 2019 when I was going through the breakup that inspired this whole EP. And I have not finished writing that spoken word track yet. But basically for me, what it looked like was the 6th stage of grief for me was honestly forgiveness. And you know, you'd think that like acceptance and forgiveness are the same thing, and they are definitely not. Forgiveness for me was a huge step to take, and one that I didn't fully take until I met my husband. And I think I may have given off the wrong impression by releasing Dark Side first. Because Dark Side is the anger track. So the way I'm structuring it is the first 5 songs are thematically about the first 5 stages of grief. So each song is going to have a different feel. Like there's a very ballady song for the depression one. There's a, you know, conflicted one for the denial. There's kind of just a power ballad for the 5th one, which is acceptance. Ironically, I wrote that one first. But I think I may have given off the wrong impression by releasing Dark Side first, because everybody's like, yeah, she's writing angry music now, and it's going to be all screaming and hardcore and blah. And even, you know, I think I ruffled some feathers by not having this be like the traditional MXI material. Because Moxy and the Influence back in the day was kind of all about like self-love and confidence and not writing songs about guys.
So the anti-Taylor Swift model.
Pretty much, yeah. Because we were 4 teenage girls and we were like, we don't have to write songs about relationships. Like, what the heck? Everybody writes stuff about that. And for me, this has taken on a larger meaning to where you kind of are going to have to listen to it in the context of, this is part of my grief process. This is something that I went through, and I'm not releasing this to just vent about a guy. I'm not releasing this to put someone on blast. I'm releasing it because we have a lot of music that tells you how to feel, a lot of music that tells you, how is okay to feel, or blatantly says like, don't be sad or don't be, whatever, like kind of overtly. And that's a lot of what Moxy and the Influences music was like, this is who we are. We were torn. We had scars. These are verbatim lyrics. Like, it was just kind of overtly like, we are strong, we are brave, we are manifesting all these things by saying them. And
We
this
are farmers.
bum 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 bum. And for me, the process of writing this song has really been more of a holistic journey through what each stage of grief looked like for me.
Mm.
And for the listener, I'm hoping it will be an experiential listening process where you're actually going through and hearing the way that I process these things, what I was writing as I was going through them, will hopefully empower people to look at their own story and look at their own 5 stages of grief, whatever they're still processing, whatever they might end up processing in the future, and kind of actually take a deeper look at that, take a deep dive and go through it, and not just say no to those emotions and try to get rid of them because they hurt. Because grief hurts. It sucks. But you have to go through each stage in order to make it count. The anger stage is useless on its own until you get to the acceptance and eventually the forgiveness. And I hope that I haven't made people think that I'm just an angry person now.
Well, I can attest that you are an angry person. And
only for you, Ruben.
well, I don't blame you. I think a lot of people are just angry whenever I walk into a room. It's more like, who invited this guy? Well, Moxy, I'm excited for the future of your music career. I'm looking forward to your follow-up EP. MXI takes on AB, Alter Bridge.
Breakdown and Boogie.
That's gonna be the third one. And I'm excited just to see the process of what comes next for you, both in the solo softer side of Moxy Anne and the more hard, semi almost metal, I don't even know what to define it, version that is MXI. I got to ask the obligatory, where can people find you on social media? How can people find your music? Blah, 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 all that stuff. You know what to do.
Oh, yeah, all that stuff. So thankfully, all of my social media branding is fairly easy. You can find me at Moxy Anne Music. That's MOXYANNE Music, spelled exactly like it sounds, on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the major ones. Actually, the only one that I don't have right now is Facebook, because I recently migrated my Facebook page back over to the band page. However, that is going to be the best place to follow me. So you can follow the band. It's going to be all things our MXI band. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, those are all MXI band. You can find us at TikTok at mxi.band. And then my website is going to be moxyanne.com, and our band website is mxiband.com.
And of course, thebestfriendshow.com.
You gotta stream it, man.
Is expired. We got to renew that if we want to keep. Well, we don't have to renew it because people are downloading it anyway. So
that's true.
It's bizarre.
Why did we put so much work in?
Because there was a summer where we made like $1,000, like doing, and then we got banned from our podcast platform at the time. So we just invested all the money and then lost it all. But chalked that one down. It was a weird. Well, yeah, it was the middle of COVID, so and an election and bunch of other stuff. But Moxy Anne, thank you so much for doing this. People want to know when the podcast is coming back, and
so do I.
So you're saying there's a chance? There's one person in New Jersey who's like, yes, there's a chance. Why did I pick New Jersey? I have no idea. Anyway,
choice.
Well, okay. All right. I'm going to end this before we say stuff that we shouldn't.
That's always a good idea. Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruben. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So occasionally. Once or twice.
Like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Those were good times.
And that was my conversation with the incredibly talented Moxy Anne. And I will tell you this. I am glad I don't have to work with her on a regular basis. I am totally kidding because she's not going to watch this. She's not going to watch this. I know she's not going to watch this or listen to this. But no, wonderful interview. Head over to her Spotify page and download Dark Side. And I can't wait for her EP to drop. And if you would like to hear more of Moxy and I having conversations with multiple different people, we have over 100 episodes of the You're My Best Friend podcast that we did, and they're all available right now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the different platforms currently for the time being. So head over, download those. I know like hundreds of you have been downloading that every month for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, we have plenty more conversations if you want more of that available. But of course, more importantly than any of that, subscribe to this podcast. Help keep us on the air because it's because of the listeners that we're able to do what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and head out. My name is Ruben J. This has been the Ruben J Show, and I will see you guys next week. I got a great guest next week. I think you're going to enjoy it. That announcement is dropping on Thursday. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at the Ruben J and at the Ruben J Show. And we'll see you then.